Hey everybody, this is Nick LaRue from FilmSnobbery. I'm here in Valdosta, Georgia at the South Georgia Film Festival. I'm at VSU. This is about the closest I've gotten to going to college in a long time. All right, it's bringing me back. And I will tell you though, at this age, it is absolutely creepy for me to say to anyone here, hey, what's your major? So I got to stay away from that. But I've been lucky enough to speak with so many wonderful people here so far. I've got one more here for you. Who am I here with today?
Hi, I'm Betsy Kalin. I am a filmmaker. I make documentaries, and I'm also a professor at the University of Central Florida.
Oh no, I'm going to be graded. Weighted, measured. No. So what movie are you here at the festival with?
I'm showing a work in progress of a documentary that I'm working on called DREAMING in Somali. And Dreaming in Somali is an exploration of women in the Twin Cities, Minnesota. It actually has the largest Somali population in the United States. 10% of the population of the Twin Cities is Somali. And so I'm following women who are making a difference in their community in all of these different areas, in politics, in policing, in education, and as well as in mental health.
Where did you discover the story, that this was the story that you wanted to tell?
Actually, I was at a conference with another one of my films. I directed a film called East LA Interchange, and it features will.i.am and Danny Trejo, and it looks at the Boyle Heights neighborhood in East Los Angeles. And so I was at a conference showing that film, and I met an academic who was there with her book. And so I was able to learn about the Somali community, and there was a lot of overlaps as far as an immigrant community really advocating for themselves against a lot of bad public policy, and also trying to create change for future generations.
And I absolutely love the East LA connection there too, because I used to live in East Los Angeles. I was in Highland Park, which is not very far from Boyle Heights, so just a little bit further down, the area there. And I've met Danny. He's a fantastic guy. Yeah, I met him at South by Southwest years ago. Nice guy, smaller than you would think.
And the sweetest man. Like, I mean, I don't hope he doesn't kill me for saying that, but like.
Oh, you're gonna get a machete. No.
He's just such a nice person to work with, and he loved the film. He is our voiceover narrator for the film, and he actually just wanted to watch the film, and we only had him for a certain time. So I'm like, I'm so sorry. We actually will send you the film, but we really need you to do the narration.
When it comes to this film now, though, it's one thing to kind of understand. I'm going to approach this academically. You have your thesis, right? So you know what you're trying to accomplish here and what you're trying to get. Where did you find the subjects and working with them to for the film?
Yeah. So in documentary now we call them participants, and that's a new thing, but they are part of a collaborative process that we're doing with the project. And so when we started casting, we talked to like over 30 women in the community, and we really wanted to find people who were interested in having that kind of relationship with us, as filmmakers, that they wanted to grow with us. They wanted to help with, as far as telling us what their stories were and what they wanted to happen with the outcome with the film, which is really important to us as well. So it really was an in-depth research kind of process, and we were lucky that Stephanie Chambers, who is the producer of the film, she has done a lot of work in the community and had a lot of connections, and then we brought on an associate producer who's also from the community, and so we were really able to reach out and get a lot of people to talk to from that.
Is one of the things you're hoping to accomplish with the film kind of changing perception of Somalis in general, by viewing them as just people trying to do their jobs and not as anything else in this country? Or is that kind of ultimately where you want this to kind of be viewed through the lens of?
Well, I think, the women who are involved in the project, they really want this story to be an empowering one for like young Somali kids, for young girls, young boys, anybody who feels like their story gets stereotyped in the media, and I think that's been really common with the Somali community. I think the other thing is that, it's an immigrant story, really. And so we're looking at women who are part of the 1.5 generation, which means, they came over to the U.S. as children, as young people, and they are doing incredible things and working so hard in order to create a more equitable and fair system.
Yeah, it's interesting because specifically in the United States, you don't. You might say, oh, there's Chinatown, there's Koreatown, Little Italy, all of this kind of things, but I think it all just gets lumped together into, oh, it's just immigrants. It's or really these days it's more like, oh, the illegals. It's like, no, that's not what that is, but that's a completely different conversation. But it's interesting because just like anyone else, these people have stories to tell. There's a reason why they're here and why they picked this country of any other country they could have gone to start a life in. And I always look at that and say there's an importance to that we overlook as a society. And there's a large world out there, and there's a large swath of it, and that they could have gone to, and they picked here. And there's a testament to that as a country as well there. I don't have a particular point I'm making on that one, other than just like, the next time that you do see some of these people that struggle in this and that, just understand, like, they could have gone elsewhere. They chose here, and it's not because he live here is easy. It's just because they might share some of the same values that we share.
Well, I think what's so important with our society is just to have a sense of curiosity, right? And it's like curiosity with friendliness. And that's how you really need to be towards everyone, because there's so much that each of us don't understand. And just ask a question, just say hello, just be, friendly and, understanding. I think that's a huge thing. I think with Minnesota, one of the things that we talk about in the film is this concept of Minnesota nice. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I'm very familiar.
Yeah, and so, there's a difference between being nice to your face and, all of these microaggressions behind, or even into your, even behind your back, but then also, out in front of you. And so I think, when I say friendly, I mean genuinely friendly, and not this, niceness that really masks a lot of hatred and intolerance.
I've been asked, before, oh, is that person, are they nice? Yeah. Are they kind? Well, that's maybe that's different, but I get it. And being an educator yourself, what specifically are you teaching the Utes down in Florida?
I love that movie. I'm an assistant professor of film, and I teach in the BFA program, documentary production workshop. So it's documentary production 1 and 2. It's a year-long class, and the students do a lot of pre-production and prep in the fall, and then the spring is crazy with them filming and editing and getting their whole short film done and completed. So yeah, and then I also teach in the MFA program as well. And our MFA is really unique in that the students make a feature-length film. And we also have nonfiction, fiction, and experimental tracks.
What kind of resources do the filmmakers get on that kind of track? Because immediately someone says, "Oh, you're going to make a feature film." Okay, well, there's the first thing you say is budget, but then you can offset a lot of that with the school obviously having more resources, whether it's a camera department, whatever. What kind of resources does do the students have available to them from the school?
Yeah, we do micro-budget productions, and so that's something that's really important. So it is a very, kind of just do it in a way that you can actually complete a feature-length film. But our equipment facilities is amazing, and they do have a lot of help in that respect. And I also really encourage our undergraduate students to work together. I mean, I think that's the most important thing. Like, people think, oh, you're making a documentary, you can just do it all yourself. No, it's a lot of work. It's so much better when you're working as a team. And so I think that's another thing that's great. But a lot of it is, still doing crowdfunding and trying to find different ways in order to be able to bring your vision to actuality. Yeah.
What are some of the misconceptions that some of the students have as they go into these classes? Do they think it's going to be, oh, I'm making a documentary? Well, it's real life. I just point the camera at someone and let them talk. Or what are some of the things they go into that you go like, well, honey, it's way different?
I actually have to tell you, like, the students are amazing. Like, I don't have to really,
Oh, I see. You're the cool teacher.
No, really, like, they are so interested in learning everything. And, yeah, I've never had a student be like, oh, this is so easy. I mean, maybe I make them work really hard, and I teach them a lot about, the research and development process and pre-production and everything that goes into that. And they even shoot pre-interviews. They shoot, B-roll. And then at the end of the fall semester, they put together a 2-minute work sample. So, that's great. And they can use that then for crowdfunding. Yeah.
That's fantastic too. Also because you're kind of in kind of going into the BTS world a little bit and some of this other stuff. You're showing them a little bit of the value of the marketing of stuff too, and the work that goes into that, which is something that is so often overlooked.
Yeah, that's something that we can talk about for sure. I mean, I really feel like in a lot of film education programs, they don't talk about the importance of marketing and distribution and building yourself as a brand. Like, what is your brand? Why? Who are you? Who are you as a filmmaker? What do you really want to do in the future? I mean, think about those questions and, try and, once you have that brand, do things that fit into it.
As a small aside story, I was working on my book, and which has to do with marketing, and I was talking to Kevin Smith about something, and Kevin told me this story, and I included it in the book, and then in the peer review of the book by other educators, ostensibly, because it's an academic book, they were like, no one wants to hear from Kevin Smith. What he's saying right now is it's irrelevant. Everything he said, he's been, saying the same thing since 1992. Everything he's got to say has been said. And I said, I literally have chronicled his entire career, and he's never told this story on anything. So I'm going to have to disagree with you on that one. But it specifically was about branding. It was about, because I asked him, I said, you are one of the few filmmakers that has become their brand and that you have mastered the art. Name 3 directors that or filmmakers of any sort that have their names on toys, that have their names on merchandise, that isn't just the DVD that you sell in the store, but you have T-shirts, entire characters that are, Spike Lee might be, yeah.
I mean, but he came out of marketing too, right? That was his thing. I teach him in my marketing class because he's like such a genius.
Yeah, and you might, you're definitely, you're qualified to answer that question probably better than most average people. But but even then, it's like Kevin Smith, Spike Lee. Maybe you could say Ava DuVernay because she comes out of PR, and so and she kind of built an entire brand around herself with Queen Sugar and all of that. And then and there's a few others as well. Tyler Perry, I think, is also maybe a good example. Shonda, all the Shonda Rhimes, Shonda Land stuff. But again, not to the point of like toys, stores with his face on it, doing all of these different things, and also not being pigeonholed into just you're that filmmaker. Right. He goes into comics, he goes into this, and branding and marketing has a lot to do with that and how you're perceived with within your fan base and your audience. How many people have survived in their careers for 40 years or 30 or 40 years and have been able to consistently keep their audience and all that kind of stuff. And Disney is kind of like, that's when you start looking at stuff. You start looking at the monoliths at that point. So that was that, it's not something that I think that filmmakers, I think they take it a little bit for granted that, there's this personal brand. There's in the marketing world, especially in the rise of tech and like all the tech bro stuff and all that kind of came up because, guys like Gary Vaynerchuk and stuff like that. He's like, oh, you got to crush it and you have to create a brand and you have to hustle and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, I'm not so much for hustle culture. I'm getting older. I work smarter, not harder. How about that? We work for that? Do you find that a lot of what you do as a filmmaker has to evolve a lot with the times and the technology and all that? You always have to constantly keep up.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I love being a filmmaker is that constant change, like everything changes all the time. I mean, another thing, is that NLE programs, right? So now we have DaVinci, and DaVinci is free, and DaVinci has amazing power and potential. I mean, it's still not the most used like Avid or, Premiere, but it's a great program. So I love that all of this stuff is coming up now. I mean, AI is a whole nother question too. And in documentary, it's really interesting because now, like if you're doing a historical documentary, you can use AI to kind of show an example of what you would like to do if you have the budget or what you're able to do. But at the same time, it's really scary in terms of ethics and what's going on, to create just the images that you see, what they're using, even for text. I mean, yeah.
Do you, as an educator, have a policy either in your class or in the school against AI for anything, relating, whether it's something as simple as a report or for a film or anything like that?
I mean, yeah. I mean, we want to hear what the student thinks, not what AI thinks. And if you think that we can't tell, we can tell. Okay. Yeah, we definitely can tell because AI, when they write an essay, they are really unclear. It's like, what is your point?
Also, they're very formulaic.
Very formulaic, and they like talk in circles. Yeah, so you're like, what is this?
What is your favorite part about being at a film festival? Because we're here again, South Georgia Film Festival, and what to you makes a good film festival?
This is a wonderful film festival, and I think what makes it a wonderful film festival is the people. I mean, really, that's what makes every festival a great festival. So I think it's people who love films getting together, talking, watching films. That whole process is just amazing.
As someone who's been in the industry for a little bit and also obviously again educator, so you're deep in this all the time, whether you like it or not. Do you get anything out of things like panels and stuff like that?
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's again, filmmaking is you're constantly learning, right? You're constantly growing. You're constantly like exploring new things. I mean, it would be really boring if I just sat down and did the same thing over and over and over again. And I think that's what's so great about traveling and going to film festivals and meeting people and seeing new works. I mean, I was on the jury for this festival, and I got to see a bunch of really awesome films that I wouldn't normally get to see. So...
What was your favorite film? No, you're not allowed to say, you can't say it. Okay.
I'll know on Sunday.
I'll know on Sunday. No, that's fantastic. How often do you think you travel per year at festivals or events?
Oh, wow, that's a hard question. I mean, I don't know.
It depends on
it depends.
Are you traveling with a film, or are you just like guest lecturing somewhere or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, once you see, documentaries take a while to make. And I think 5 years is the average, and some go as long as 10. So when you make them, then you travel actually for quite some time. With my last film, I was on the festival circuit for like 2 years. So that was really fun, getting to go to all these different places with the film. But the other thing with documentaries is that they have an outreach and engagement strategy, and so it's called like an impact strategy, and so that makes the film continue on much longer. So you set these goals that you want to achieve through the film, and then you work with community groups, you work with organizations, you work with libraries, education, and like all of these different things in order to really help change things through your work.
Do you think that documentaries have an easier or a tougher time finding distribution because of the nature of them? I mean, because you have, obviously there's great outlets like PBS and stuff like that that are doing, programming all the time. And of course, then you have the educational route of libraries and all these other things. But do you find it to be that, it's something that's like, yes, documentary, of course, and it's relevant, right now type of thing. Do you have an opinion one way or the other? I
mean, I think it's pretty similar to fiction filmmaking. I think, documentaries can definitely go the education route, which fiction filmmaking doesn't always fit into. But Vimeo, you can get on Vimeo, you can get on Tubi, you can get on all these other platforms as a documentary filmmaker. So I think it's pretty varied.
Is there anything different about a specifically documentary film festival like True False,
Yeah.
or was it Frame?
There's Big Sky, documentary film festival.
Yeah.
Full Frame.
Full Frame. That's the one I was thinking of.
Hot Dogs.
Hot Docs, yeah, but obviously. Is there anything different specifically about them, and specifically as you're there as a filmmaker? Obviously, the end goal is to reach as many people as possible in terms of an audience and all that. But is it any different than just a regular non-genre specific film festival, or are there other goals that you as a filmmaker have in mind at those fests?
Yeah, I think with documentary-centric festivals, I mean, the one thing is that you're meeting a lot of people that have your same goals in mind. So not to say that, fiction filmmakers aren't lovely people, they are, but they generally don't have those impact strategy goals, right? And so when you talk to other doc filmmakers, I mean, there is that shared sense of, okay, what do we want to accomplish with the film? And then the whole role around, you're working with participants. So you're working with real people, real lives. And so that experience also makes it, quite different.
Do you ever find it difficult to find a line, or if there even is a line or a thought process in place of especially when you're dealing with harder topics in a documentary, any type of abuse issues or other, kind of harder things? Do you ever find it difficult to still go this is part of the story has to be told, at the same time while we're trying to tell the reality here? Ostensibly, it is still a movie, is still technically considered entertainment to some degree. Do you ever feel somewhat a responsibility to the audience of okay, obviously I have to deliver this information, but at the same time, hold on, this will still be entertaining and somehow fulfilling in another way. Just hold on with it.
Yeah, okay, so I don't make those films. I think there is some exploitation in some documentaries, and I really try to come from an ethical practice where I, honor not only the participants in the film, but also the audience and the audience members. And one of the things I talk about is, well, who's funding it, right? Who's making this film? Is Vice making this film? It's going to be a lot different than, let's say, an independent filmmaker making a film. Their ideas are different, their needs are different, and all of those issues around entertainment are going to be different. Okay. And so my obligation is really to the people in my film and to the audience. And so I don't necessarily want it to be pure entertainment. I don't want to do anything for shock value. I don't want to do anything that's not true to the people that are in my work. But at the same time, I have a really quirky and weird sense of humor. And so my films tend to have humor in them. Okay. And I don't see that as being an issue. But again, my work is generally about community organizing and communities kind of working against systemic racism. And so within that, there can be some humor, but I just don't want it to be at anyone's expense.
I find if I find humor in a lot of that stuff, where I find it is in the a chronic overcorrection of things. It's when someone feels they get backed into the corner of no, it's this, but I meant this, but really was this, and then no, and what you're misunderstanding me. What I meant was blah, blah, blah. And I'm just dude, just take your box sleeve. No, you're not getting out of this one. No, I get it. It's interesting, and I like the idea of what you were saying of who's funding the thing. Obviously, in independent film, you have your voice is the voice that the audience is the lens that they're seeing that through, in this thing and the story you're telling. If it's someone else, obviously, yeah, if you have to serve someone, you better know where your money's coming from on that one, because that could affect the story. I think that's a fantastic point there. As far as but getting money is concerned, do you find that most of that, in your experience as a filmmaker, or even what you're teaching, do you go more the crowdfunding route, or do you try to find more like philanthropy? Are you, what is your preferred route to go? And is it the same every movie? Do you kind of go the same things?
Yeah, so my preferred route is to have a sponsor who just wants to fund everything that I do. This has never happened, but that is my dream. Really, I teach a variety because, really, I think grant funding for documentaries only works out to be about 20% of your budget. So you really have to have a wide net, And I think another thing with documentaries is we generally have fiscal sponsors. So we generally have an organization that gives us 501c3 tax. Yeah. So everything is a tax deduction. Exactly. But
Film Collaborative used to do that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Film Collaborative is awesome. Shout out to Film Collaborative.
Right.
Yeah. So I think, I teach my students to always, have a good proposal, have a good, sample work, have those things in place for grants and foundations and, those kind of applications. But also, crowdfunding, and then be creative. Like, house parties are really effective. You can do all sorts of like different events at restaurants or cafes or something. Like, just make it fun. And there's so many ways to raise money, and it doesn't have to be the really traditional routes.
Do you teach grant writing at all as part of your classes?
Yeah, how can you tell?
No, I literally asked that because I think I need someone to teach me how that works. Because you hear about that a lot. It's actually something that comes up very often in nonprofit situations, philanthropic situations. But I literally have never seen anyone go like, oh, but by the way, here's how you do grant writing. It's a skill. It's a skill. Yeah. Film festivals, a lot of them that are working as either nonprofits or as they'll have like a nonprofit arm or something, or even the for-profit ones. Sometimes will try things.
Grants. And they need grants from like the community that they're in. They need grants from the state that they're in. They need the different arts councils to support them, and then they need like big corporations to support them as well.
Do you talk to your students at all about also just the business of being in film? I mean, obviously the grant writing is part of that, but like it's like, okay, so get yourself an LLC or 501c3 or something like that. You get all your tax purposes. Remember how to do your write-offs, all these kind of things. Is there actually like a section in the curriculum about write-offs?
Well, here's the thing. Right now, you're assuming that people will actually make money as filmmakers.
Oh no, I'm assuming no money, but I am definitely assuming expenses. If there's one thing I learned as a business owner over the years, it's not about how much money I make. It's about the amount of expenses I can write off.
Yeah.
It's my wife's job to go make money. It's my job to figure out how to best spend it.
And where to write it off to. Yeah. No, we do talk about that. I think the thing that's most important, I think, for young filmmakers is really about audience, right? Target audience. Like, who are they making this movie for, and how do they reach them?
Everyone, right?
Yeah, I mean, everyone, really.
Yeah.
I mean, but we kind of learn it as, we go. But, like, if you're just starting out, you don't even think that. Like, most of my students don't even think about, well, who's going to want to see my movie?
No, that's the answer. Everyone, right? Isn't everyone the target audience for this movie?
Yeah.
But my total addressable market is everyone. Oh, no, it isn't.
I always tell them, do not ever say everyone. Don't say that. It is so not true.
This is going to sound, especially considering what I do, because it's not something I think about, but it's just a thought that popped into my head, would you consider, as someone who's kind of niched into documentary, obviously you look at film says genres. Do documentaries have defined genres?
Ooh, Ooh, such a good yes. Yes, they do, and it's very it's a much wider variety than people even imagine.
It just gets lumped into doc.
It does, and that's so not, it's so not encompassing everything that documentary is. I mean, there's experimental documentary, there's music documentaries, there's sports documentaries, there's journalistic documentaries, there's everything. We even have recreations in documentaries. So I think that's the beauty of nonfiction, is that there's just so much there, and I'm just always shocked that people think it's always the PBS talking head thing. Like, that's what a documentary is, and I'm like,
it's that, or it's the PBS thing, or it's Ken Burns. Like, there's no in between.
That is Ken Burns. Yeah, the PBS thing. And they don't think, oh, this could just be a verite documentary, right? Yeah. So I think the education needs to really expand around what is a documentary. But you mentioned True False Film Festival, and they're doing great stuff. Yeah. So. Yeah.
You had mentioned that one of the reasons why you were here screening a work in progress. So from that work in progress, I'm assuming it's so you can go back to not the full drawing board, but you can go take your notes and whatnot and kind of iterate, yes. Which is a thing I love to do. What are some of the things you were looking at as you were watching people watch the film or getting questions? Did you do a Q&A afterwards?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did a Q&A with Dan.
Best
it was wonderful. I think the thing that you always want to know is, are people drawn to the story? Are they understanding what the story is? And are they getting what the arcs are for the characters? And do they want to see more? I think that's the biggest thing whenever you show a work sample, is that, do you want to see more? Are you drawn to the story? Are you drawn to knowing more about the people? So I think that was the thing that I was really looking for.
And I was going to say, did you get that takeaway? Now you're going to go back?
They hated it. They hate, no.
No. They loved it. Okay. Cut. No. No.
No, of course. They gave really good feedback and asked, the questions that you get really help you too. So, like, if somebody asks a question about, well, why am I seeing just, separate stories? Are these going to be woven together? Then I can say, yes, they are going to be woven together in the actual film, but right here we have to keep them separate for the time constraint, And so I think those questions really help too.
Fantastic. Well, I don't want to keep you any longer, but thank you so much for sitting here and putting up with me for half an hour. That was 32 minutes. Wow. So thank you very much. I want to encourage everyone to check out. Where can people check out your work and learn more about you?
They can visit my website. It's ichibiproductions.com. And then I have a bunch of films on there for you to check out. And then East LA Interchange is available widely streaming. So it's on all the different services, Tubi, Amazon, pretty much everything.
Pretty much everything. Well, thank you again. And it was fantastic meeting you, by the way, here at the South Georgia Film Festival in Valdosta, Georgia, over at VSU. Fantastic. A great campus, great place. Wonderful opening night party last night. We had a chance. So thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me. It was very nice meeting you.
I loved it.
Awesome.